The journey of the soul is often whispered in the silent corridors of our existence. Far from the chaotic roar of modern society that demands constant connection and relentless noise, there is a profound, almost mystical threshold we cross when we stop fearing the silence and begin to welcome it as a sacred teacher. When you encounter someone who can sit at a table in a bustling restaurant, completely alone yet visibly at peace, you are witnessing a silent triumph of the human spirit. This person has not been abandoned. They have arrived. They have reached a state of inner congruence where the external presence of others is no longer a prerequisite for their happiness. Your spiritual guides often orchestrate these moments of isolation not as a punishment, but as a deliberate intervention to rescue you from the superficiality of a life lived solely for others. In the vast philosophy of Allan Kardec, we learn that the spirit must undergo trials to detach itself from the heavy chains of worldly expectations. This solitude is the forge where your true identity is shaped, away from the distorted mirrors provided by social media or the fickle approval of peers. When you reach the point where your own company is enough, you have won the most significant battle of your earthly incarnation, the victory over the fear of yourself. This script explores the deep transformative power of choosing the self, guided by the light of spiritual logic and the necessity of finding one's own center in a world that tries to pull us in every direction. The first profound signal that your spiritual guide is leading you toward a solitary life is a sudden, deep-seated realization that you can no longer tolerate the noise of false interactions. It is as if a spiritual veil has been lifted, revealing that your constant search for company was merely a mechanism to escape the terrifying honesty of your own thoughts. Allan Kardec teaches that the spirit is an individual unit responsible for its own progress, and while we live in society to learn from one another, true evolution happens in the quiet moments of introspection. When you find yourself gazing into a mirror, not to check your appearance but to acknowledge the being looking back, you are beginning to train the soul to stand on its own. Most people flee from themselves because they find the burden of their own presence unbearable, yet they expect others to carry that same burden with joy. The guide pushes you into solitude so you can unload the baggage of self-loathing and replace it with a quiet, resilient self-respect. You must learn to be your own best friend, your own confidant, and your own protector before you can offer anything genuine to the world. This phase of isolation is where you begin to reconcile with your past mistakes and your future potential, creating a sanctuary within your own mind that no external storm can destroy. By mastering the art of being alone, you are essentially detoxifying your spirit from the poison of dependency, preparing yourself to walk a path of true autonomy and spiritual maturity. In the lexicon of the soul, there is a brutal but necessary distinction between loneliness and solitude that every seeker must eventually master. Loneliness is the painful sensation of being cast out, a negative state where one feels the absence of others as a physical wound or a crushing weight. Solitude, however, is the voluntary act of stepping back to gain perspective. It is the solitude that Paul Tillich described as the glory of being alone, while loneliness is the pain. Your spiritual guides are nudging you toward solitude because it is the only environment where the still small voice of your higher self can be heard above the static of cultural brainwashing. When you choose to spend a Saturday evening at home with a book or a cup of tea, you are practicing the virtue of self-possession. You are signaling to the universe that you are enough, that your thoughts have value, and that you do not need the frantic energy of a crowd to prove your existence. This is not about being antisocial, it is about being pro-soul. The guide encourages this because without these periods of voluntary isolation, the spirit becomes a mere sponge, absorbing the anxieties and prejudices of everyone it touches. Solitude is the filter that allows you to discard what is not yours and retain what is essential to your specific mission on this planet. It is a state of active engagement with the divine, a silent dialogue with the infinite, where you realize that you are never truly alone because the Creator and your spiritual guardians are always present in the stillness. One of the most perplexing aspects of human nature is our innate ability to create chaos the moment we find ourselves on the brink of true peace. Observe how people act during festive seasons or moments of great professional success. They often invent conflicts or pick fights over trivialities as if they are allergic to harmony. This is because the ego finds a sick sense of vitality in drama. It feels alive when it is fighting a battle, even if that battle is unnecessary and destructive. Your guide promotes solitude to help you break this cycle of self-sabotage by removing the external triggers that feed your inner demons. When you are alone, there is no one to blame for your discomfort but yourself, which forces a level of accountability that most people spend their entire lives avoiding. Allan Kardec suggested that our imperfections are the hurdles we must jump to reach higher states of being, and isolation removes the audience for our performance of misery. By stepping away from toxic cycles and dramatic social structures, you deny your lower self the fuel it needs to keep the fire of dysfunction burning. This period of living alone acts as a spiritual quarantine, preventing you from infecting others with your unresolved issues, and, more importantly, protecting you from the chaotic energy of a society that thrives on instability. It is a time to cultivate the joy of the quiet life, learning that peace is not boring. It is the highest form of spiritual achievement. As you spend more time in your own sanctuary, you will notice a drastic change in how you perceive your social circle, leading to a focus on quality over quantity. The spiritual guides emphasize that the spirit does not need 1,000 acquaintances to thrive. It needs a few organic connections that resonate with its true frequency. Many of us maintain friendships out of habit, obligation, or a fear of being seen as a loner. But these shallow bonds act like parasitic vines, draining our energy without offering any real sustenance. When you embrace living alone, you naturally stop attending the large, meaningless gatherings that Kardec might describe as distractions for the frivolous spirit. You begin to value the few people who have stood by you in darkness, those with whom you can share a silence without it being awkward. A party with 80 guests is often just 80 people being lonely together, whereas a dinner with 2 true friends is a feast of the soul. Your guides want you to conserve your energy for these high-vibration interactions, teaching you that time is a non-renewable resource that should never be squandered on the cynical or the indifferent. By clearing the clutter of social obligations, you create space for the universe to bring into your life individuals who are genuinely aligned with your spiritual purpose. This is the process of becoming a social minimalist, where every person you allow into your inner sanctum is there because they contribute to your growth, and you to theirs, in a reciprocal dance of mutual respect and spiritual love. There is a famous philosophical metaphor regarding porcupines in winter. They need to get close to each other for warmth, but if they get too close, they prick each other with their sharp quills. Human relationships operate on a similar dynamic, where the lack of personal space often leads to friction, resentment, and the eventual cooling of affection. Your spiritual guide recognizes that living with others 24/7 can sometimes stifle the soul's development, leading to a blurring of boundaries where you lose sight of where you end and the other person begins. By encouraging you to live alone, the guides are helping you find the perfect distance, the warmth without the quills. This space allows you to cultivate your own rhythms, your own spiritual practices, and your own unique perspective without the constant negotiation that living with others requires. In the Spiritist view, every individual has a specific path of progression, and sometimes that path requires a laboratory of isolation to test one's strength. When you have your own space, your interactions with others become more intentional and less reactive. You go to them out of desire, not out of proximity. This teaches you the value of missing someone and the importance of coming back to center. Living alone provides the necessary silence to process the interactions you do have, turning raw social experiences into refined spiritual wisdom. It is the ultimate boundary exercise, ensuring that your kindness is a choice and not a result of being unable to get away. We live in a deceptive era where we are constantly pressured to curate a perfect digital avatar, a smiling, successful caricature of ourselves that the world can applaud. Yet, as Kardec would note, the spirit knows the truth behind the mask, and this gap between the public persona and the private self is a source of immense psychological and spiritual tension. The guides call you to solitude to force a confrontation between these two realities, tearing down the false idols of vanity. When you are alone, you do not need to perform. There is no audience to impress with your expensive meals, your travel photos, or your artificial happiness. You are forced to look at your identity card photo, the raw, unedited, and sometimes uncomfortable truth of your current state. This honesty is the foundation of all spiritual progress, for you cannot fix what you refuse to acknowledge. Solitude acts as a mirror that reflects the Dorian Gray portrait in the attic of your soul, revealing the marks of envy, pride, and fear that the Instagram filters hide. By staying in this space, you allow yourself the luxury of being authentic, even if that authenticity is messy or quiet. Your guide wants you to stop believing in the character you have created for society and start investing in the spirit that actually exists. Only when you are comfortable with your unfiltered self can you achieve true freedom from the Medusa of public opinion, which has the power to turn your soul to stone if you worship it too long. One of the most profound realizations that comes from a solitary spiritual life is the true weight and value of time. We often treat time as if it were infinite, throwing it away on scrolling through meaningless content, arguing with strangers, or attending events that leave us feeling empty. However, your spiritual guide understands that your physical incarnation is a limited window of opportunity for the spirit to learn specific lessons. Living alone teaches you to treat your hours as sacred, as currency that must be spent wisely. You begin to understand that money can be earned back, but a wasted hour is gone forever. This perspective shifts your priorities. You no longer feel guilty for saying no to social pressure, because you realize that every yes to a meaningless interaction is a no to your own growth and peace. Allan Kardec emphasized that we are here for a purpose, and that purpose requires focus and discipline. Solitude provides the structure for that discipline to flourish. When you are the master of your own time, you can dedicate it to meditation, studying the laws of the universe, or simply resting the physical body to allow the spirit to travel in sleep. Honoring your time is a form of self-love and a sign of respect for the divine plan that brought you here. It is the act of reclaiming your life from the hands of the collective and placing it firmly back into the hands of the individual soul, where it belongs. The goal of spiritual solitude is not just to be away from people, but to engage in a deep internal alchemy that turns the lead of daily anxiety into the gold of spiritual wisdom. Within every person, there is a dense forest of unresolved trauma, hidden fears, and ancestral patterns that are constantly whispering in the background of our consciousness. Usually, we drown out these voices with external stimuli, but the guide leads us to a solitary home to force us to listen. This is the decoding of the soul, the process of sitting with discomfort until it reveals its origin. Just as psychologists suggest exposure therapy to cure a phobia of spiders, the spirit needs exposure to its own silence to cure its phobia of being alone. During this time, you learn to cease the internal voice of harsh self-criticism and replace it with a reflective, objective observation of your own life. This transformation is what Kardec would describe as the perfectibility of the human spirit, the realization that we are works in progress, capable of constant refinement. By choosing to face the demons of your own solitude, you prevent them from manifesting as external crises in your relationships or your health. You become an island of stability in a chaotic sea, someone who has processed their inner darkness and emerged with a light that is steady and bright. This is the supreme challenge of existence, to find the pleasure in the voluntary isolation that leads to a profound encounter with the Creator. A sign of a truly advanced spirit is the ability to walk alone without feeling a sense of lack, possessing a reservoir of inner strength that remains full regardless of external circumstances. This is spiritual autonomy, the realization that your connection to the divine is direct and does not require an intermediary or a cheering squad. When the guide prompts you to live alone, they are weaning you off the spiritual training wheels of group validation. You are learning to trust your own intuition, to make decisions based on your inner compass, and to find comfort in your own spirit. Allan Kardec discussed the idea of becoming only with oneself, a paradox where the individual achieves a state of oneness through the process of individuation. This does not mean you become cold or isolated from the needs of others. On the contrary, an autonomous spirit is more capable of true charity and political action because it is not acting out of a need for approval. You become like a tree with deep roots. You can offer shade to others because you are not dependent on them to hold you up. This stage of development ensures that when you do rejoin the community, you do so as a complete unit, contributing your unique strength to the collective without the fear of being swallowed by the group identity. You have learned that your happiness is a state of being you carry with you, not a treasure you have to hunt for in the pockets of other people. The ultimate destination of this solitary path is the emergence of a coherent spirit, one that is the same in the crowd as it is in the private sanctuary of a silent home. Living alone is the final exam of your character, testing whether your virtues are genuine or merely performed for the sake of public reputation. As Aristotle noted, we are social animals, and Kardec reaffirmed that we progress through our interactions with others, but the quality of that progress is determined by our internal consistency. The guides want you to be a coherent spirit, someone who doesn't change masks when the environment shifts. By mastering solitude, you ensure that your presence in the world is intentional, helpful, and grounded in truth. You recognize that while you need others to share love and perform tasks, you also need the depths of your own soul to survive the storms of life. This balance between the individual and the bando, the group, is the very essence of humanity. You have learned to celebrate your own life before you celebrate with the world. You have discovered that being alone is not a sign of failure, but a badge of spiritual graduation. When you can look at the person in the restaurant or at your own reflection at 2 a.m. and feel a genuine sense of gratitude and peace, you have arrived. You are now ready to love others properly because you have finally learned how to love yourself with a quiet, holy, and unbreakable strength.